Rikin is really one of those entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, who makes you feel and be proud of what India can do and can achieve if people like Rikin put their mind to it. He runs this fantastic organization called the Digital Green, where he uses ICT tools, videos essentially, to capture best practices that farmers do in 7 states across India, and to do that and take those farmer learnings to other farmers in other parts of the country and be able to build that replicable, scalable model for change. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Rikin Gandhi, please, of Digital Green, to come up and take us through his presentation.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. It's great to be here with all of you. I'll just, in brief, share a bit about some of the work that we're doing here at Digital Green. So Digital Green started in 2006, initially as a part of Microsoft Research in Bangalore, and looking at sort of the role of technology in space of agricultural development. And what we're really trying to do is trying to build through these existing social networks that farmers and governments and other agencies have with these rural communities, and seeing how technology can be leveraged to amplify their effectiveness. Now, imagine for a moment that you're an agricultural extension officer tasked with trying to train farmers on a new practice in their fields. Now, as you can imagine, these farms are remote and the terrains are difficult to navigate. These communities are large and diverse. Even in a country like India, where there's over 100,000 individuals of the government and also of civil society and private sector varieties who are involved in providing agricultural extension services, it still is a daunting challenge. There's also this issue of motivation, both for farmers to trust a extension officer coming in from the outside, as well as for extension officers finding that less than 2% of these farmers are willing to engage with them. At the same time, 17% of farmers reported using information from one another about what crops they grew and how they grew them. And justifiably, farmers are hesitant to make changes in their practices or their behaviors based on some sort of generic campaign. They really want to see something that's more relevant and local. And especially with issues of climate change, both environmental as well as political varieties, this is especially an issue that needs to be addressed. But the same tools of technology that's inspired a whole generation to study science and engineering during the 1950s, with seeing things like grainy footage of astronauts on the surface of the moon, these same tools can be leveraged to incentivize farmers to literally be seen as the best farmer within their respective communities. Now, this has been done before. This is American Idol or Indian Idol, right, with over 30 million viewers and 120 million voters in the show's last season finale. It's clear that astronauts have been replaced by a very different sort of idol. And though people are competing for record contracts and prize money, it's really the opportunity that anyone can make it onto the big stage that gives these shows their broad appeal. And so what we do at Digital Green is that we partner with government, civil society, and private sector organizations that are already working with farming communities and already training these individuals through traditional means of farmer field schools or demonstration plots, and essentially train in each district where we work individuals from the community to produce short 8 to 10 minute videos that are by farmers, for farmers, and of farmers on these various agricultural practices across these value chains that they are involved with. And along the way, we capture data about these videos, which I'll show how we use to be able to inform and target the production of new videos. So for example, at the time of producing a video, we record, obviously, the name of the farmer who's in the video, the crop, the practice, the language in which it is being composed on. These videos then are shared in the villages in which we work. We work in about 1,800 villages across 7 states in India. These videos, of which 2,500 videos have been produced till date in 20 different languages and are available on YouTube, are obviously not accessible directly via the internet to these communities that have intermittent electricity and internet connectivity. And so the way in which they watch these videos is in their village group settings using this battery-operated Pico projector device, which you can see in the slide here, and where there's a facilitator who is somebody from the community who essentially is mediating the screening of these videos mostly to small groups of women, typically self-help groups, on a fortnightly basis. And their role is really to pause, rewind, ask questions, get people's feedback as these short videos are being shown to these communities, and to record which farmers are watching which videos, the questions that they might express, the thumbs up or the thumbs down that they might give to them, and post the screenings. Also to record their usage data in terms of the practices that these farmers actually apply for themselves on their farms. Now, as I said, we've produced over 2,500 videos till date in 20 different languages. All the videos are available on YouTube and also available on our website. And they span a variety of different types. Some are testimonials, some are demonstrations of new practices across these agricultural value chains, ranging from things like community mobilization about these self-help groups and how they access credit and savings and other types of inputs, to how they do various types of agronomic practices like seed treatment or seed selection, to land preparation and water conservation, to accessing government schemes and aggregating themselves to access markets. And the sources of this information come from a variety of sources. The primary sources, of course, those extension systems that we work with in each district, which are in some cases governmental, in other cases non-governmental types of agencies. But as these videos are being screened, and as we get this feedback from the communities about what they like, what they don't like, what else they might want to see, that then informs the production of new content as well. And research organizations can look at this sort of data and this feedback and this sort of rich media content that's been produced till date. And, for example, the ICAR institutions can look at it and say that perhaps there's a particular area in a particular value chain, perhaps related to a commodity like paddy cultivation or wheat cultivation, where they may be able to provide some input about improving the quality of that content or providing some of their technical expertise on an area that might not already be shared across this network of partners and communities that we work with. So just to kind of, in sum, it's a sort of a hub and spoke network that we're developing in each district where we work across these 7 states. We have this team of 4 to 5 individuals that we train from the community to produce these short videos that are by community members for community members. And then in each village, they have one of these Pico projector devices to mediate these screenings of videos among small groups of farmers on a fortnightly basis. Now, what we find is that the first 2 questions that farmers often ask when they see these videos is, what is the name of the farmer in the video, and which village is he or she from? Even before they start thinking about the practice or the knowledge that's contained in it, they really want to make sure that they can authenticate the source of the information. And of course, the content needs to be with regards to services or products that are accessible to them. And so 80% of the videos that farmers would be seeing from their own village would be produced within that same district from which they're from. That's where local relevance is of such critical importance. But still, it's, in certain cases, 20% of the videos might be shared across districts where it's deemed that the ecological conditions or the service infrastructure is similar enough for broader sharing. Now, just to talk a bit about how that data that I mentioned we're capturing at each stage of producing these videos and sharing these videos, how that's useful, right? So one aspect of using data is for the purposes of targeting. So for all the 150,000 farmers that we work today, we're maintaining sort of histories about what videos they watch, what questions they may or may not ask, what practices they may adopt or not adopt over the course of time. And this then allows us to build a Nielsen ratings type of system to see what's the most popular practice in a particular place at a particular time, or what's the least popular, or what's the most confusing. And we can build a layer on top of YouTube, because on YouTube you've just got a list of videos and it's hard to search and browse through them. But connecting the data with the videos that we have uploaded onto YouTube, we can build a layer on top of it to make it easier for people to search based on crop, language, seasonality, and also to see statistics about which of these videos may be more or less effective amongst these farming communities in terms of viewership as well as adoption rates. We can also share the qualitative feedback that farmers express, and the types of questions that we get back from farmers have a variety of types. Some are questions of clarification, some are questions about accessing a particular product or service of which perhaps a government or private sector agency might be able to address that demand, and some are questions about other topics that might be more important or more pressing in nature than the video that had been just shown. This then, of course, then informs the process of producing the next set of videos to be informed based on the needs and interests that are being expressed by the community. And we can plot also these questions and this data on a Google map, so we can see trends like perhaps a pest or disease incidents that might be spreading across a geography, and be able to preemptively address it instead of just reacting to the questions or issues that farmers are raising. We can also use data not just for the purposes of targeting, but actually also supporting reflection and discussion amongst these communities and extension systems that we partnered with. So we built a tool called Farmer Book, essentially a Facebook of the farmers that we work with, in which you can see a leaderboard of the farmers that we work with, and they've been ranked just by an artificial parameter that we've defined, which is the proportion of practices that each farmer has adopted relative to the total number that they've seen. And we can also do the same for the extension officers, and it brings a new level of transparency at one level to be able to see these extension systems and these individuals who work amongst them and see what sort of results they're actually delivering. But it also is an empowerment tool so that these extension officers can also be recognized. So it need not just be for the purposes of policing, it can actually be sort of a non-monetary based incentive system for these extension agents to really compare themselves with respect to one another. Now, all these histories also of these farmers that we work with, we've exposed on Farmer Book to essentially automatically develop these profiles of them. So you can check it out online. And for each farmer, all these 150,000 farmers that we work with, you can see the sequence of videos, for example, that they've seen over the course of time, and see which questions they may have raised, which videos they liked, which videos or practices that they saw they actually adopted, and see that in relation to their peer group of fellow farmers in their self-help group. We've also linked Farmer Book to the actual Facebook world by this notion of being able to follow these farmers on Farmer Book. And whenever there's a new activity that these farmers have done, perhaps adopted a new practice, then you actually get this update on your Facebook wall. And the aim here is actually to establish connections between people who are connected on Facebook and those who are more offline on places like Farmer Book. But increasingly, this demographic of people is also converging. And we've seen in just the last year about 550,000 views of our videos, which are in these mostly tribal languages of India. So there definitely is this segment of community members, even from rural areas, who are coming online, and being able to see that by providing locally relevant content is very useful. And we're also trying to bridge the worlds of Facebook and these farmers that we work with in the fields through other means. So we've developed a game on Facebook. You may have heard of games like Farmville and Cityville, which have audiences of about 80 million people playing these games for an average of 8 minutes a day. We built a game called Wonder Village, which essentially allows Facebook users to build their own virtual village economy. And as they do, they encounter the challenges and issues of agriculture and rural development, and are also able to connect with the farmers that we work with through this notion of village gurus who link back to Farmer Book. And of course, you're able to also connect your own Facebook friends to kind of bring these two social networks of farmers and friends that you might have on Facebook together. But just to kind of summarize, we sometimes think about the digital divide as sort of one that can be crossed by technology alone. And the reality is we need sort of infrastructure that we might take for granted even sitting here in Delhi, with things like physical infrastructure, human capital, political institutions, and finance being relatively well established. And when then something like Microsoft Word or Gmail or Facebook comes along, then we're obviously able to deliver gains in value from it. But essentially what we found in our experience has been, even from a very technologist point of view, it's really critical and important to have successful interventions. You need to partner with well-intentioned and competent people and organizations of the government, of public sector and private sector who are already working with these communities, and where these tools can basically improve their participation and improve their efficiency. And that's really where farmers and rural communities in general are then able to see how they can use technology to be able to take their one small step towards improving their lives and those around them. Thank you very much.